Śrīla Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosvāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Gurudev ki jai. Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai. Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Vedanta Swami Mahārāja Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Nitila Pravishtam Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosvāmī Mahārāja ki jai. Nitila Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmad Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Nitila Pravishta Mahābhagavat Śrīla Gokisharas Babaji Mahārāja ki jai. Nitila Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Mahārāja ki jai. Shri Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadasha Raghunath Sharda Goswami Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gopal Shada Vrinda ki jai. Nama Acharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund ki jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Shri Keshav Vrat ki jai. Vrat Palan Paribhakta Vrinda ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Let me share my screen. So first we'll sing our Keshav Vrat Kirtans. Vrindadev Ashtakam by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. 1 second, I'm just getting it. Whoa. It looks like there's about to be a big storm. Looks like there's going to be a storm right now. If the wind is too intense and it's messing up the sounds, let me know. Ha Gangeya Champeya Tadir Vinindira Chi Pravaha Snapitatma Vrinde Bandhu Ka Bandhu Tuti Devavasa Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Bimbadarote Taramandahasya Nasagra Mukta Duti Dipitase Vichitaratna Varanashiyade Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Samasta Vaikunta Shiro Manoshi Krishna Sya Vrindavana Dhanya Dhani Tathadikare Vrishabhanu Putra Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Tvaragya Pallava Pushpa Bringa Mrigadi Pirma Dava Keli Kunja Madhvadi Birbhanti Vibhushamana Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Tadiyadutena Nikunjayunot Atyutkayo Keli Vilasa Siddhi Tatsobhagam Kena Niruchatam Tadvrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Rasa Vilasho Vasatishta Vrindavane Karishangri Saroja Seva Labhya Cha Pungsam Kripaya Tavaiva Vrinde Namaste Charanarvindam Tam Kirtase Satvata Tantra Virbi Lila Bidana Kila Krishna Shaktis Tavaiva Murtis Tulasi Niloke Vinde Namaste Charanarvindam Bhakta Vihina Apa अपराधलक्षाय क्षिप्ताष्टकमर्दितरङ्गमर्दे कृपमयि त्वां शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणरविन्दं वृन्दाष्टकाम्या शृणुयात्पदेव वृन्दावनादिश पदाब्जभृङ्गा सप्राप्य वृन्दावननित्यवासं तत्प्रेम सेवां लभते कृतार्था वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणरविन्दं वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणरविन्दं जय वृन्दादेवी जय वृन्दादेवी वृन्दादेवी जय वृन्दादेवी जय तुलसी महारानी जय वृन्दादेवी तुलसी महारानी जय वृन्दादेवी. Chic, let's see if the sound is right. Okay. Haribo, Rupa Manjari Didi, and Nancy. Haribo. So now, Shri Keshavashtakam by Srila Rupa Gosvāmī. Nava Priyaka Manjari Rachita Karna Purashriya Vinitratara Malati Kalita Shekare no Jvala Tarochvasita Yuthika Pratita Valgubai Kakshaka Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshava Vishangi Manikastani Pranata Shringi Pingekshane Vedanga Mukhi Dhumale Shabaliham Sivangshi Priye Iti Sasura Vikulam Taralamavayantam Muda Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshava Kana Pranaya Medhuran Madhura Narma Goshti Kala Vilasa Nilayan Milad Vivida Vesha Vedotina Sakena Kila Saraya Patishuha Sayantam Kira Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshava Shamambukanika Vali Dara Vilida Gandantara Samura Giri Dhatu Vid Likita Charupantram Kura Udancharali Mandale Duti Vidam Vivagralaka Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Avipina Deshata Keshava Nipadanavatarnaka Vali Vilo Kanot Kantaya Natat Kura Putanchalar Alugubir Bhuvan Bindhatin Akalena Davala Ghatam Lagu Nirvartayantam Pura Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Avipina Deshata Keshava Padankatati Virvaram Virachayantam Advashiyam Chalat Tarala Naichiki Nichaya Dhuli Dhumrasrajam Marola Hari Chanchale Krita Dukola Chudanchala Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshava Vilasamurikala Tvani Birula Sanmanasa Kshanara Kila Ballavi Apula Kayantamantar Vihe Mohor Vidadatan Hride Pramuditancha Goshte Shwade Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Avipina Deshata Keshava Upedapati Sundari Tati Bira Bira Vyarchita Smitam Kurakaram Pitar Natarapanga Bange Shatai Stanastavaka Sanchara Nayana Chanchare Kanchala Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Avipina Deshata Keshava Idam Nikila Ballavi Kula Mahotsavo Lasana Kramena Kilaya Puman Patati Shushtupadashtaka Tamo Jwaladiyam Sada Nijapadaravinda Taye Ratenda Dada Chanchala Sukayata Vishaka Saka Praje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshava 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 Jaya Keshavade 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 Jaya Keshavade Jaya Keshavade 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 Jaya Keshavade. See this painting in the New Dwarka temple? My mom did the border around this picture of Krishna. Okay, so let's begin. This article is a bit long. Anyhow, I wanted to do something by all of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's prominent disciples, so yeah, that's why I chose this. Knowledge and Feeling. Vidya and Vedana by Srimad Bhakti Saraṅga Gosvāmī Mahārāja. Let me just make sure. Let me know, Danda Pranams Prajumna Prabhu. I'm also live on Facebook, yes. I'm live on Facebook and on YouTube. If the wind gets too loud, just let me know, and I can close my door. The heart has reasons which reason cannot know. That's clever. Okay. Knowledge is acquired through mental vigor, but feelings are realized within the heart. The brain is the domain of knowledge, or erudition. But bhakti, being totally unconcerned with knowledge, seeks to blossom in the heart. It is said, the heart has reasons which reason cannot know. Knowledge, or vidya, is superior to ignorance. To ignorance, or avidya. Yet, if neither can rid us of mundane conceptions and rouse fully transcendental bhakti within our hearts, then both prove to be the cause of extreme misfortune. If knowledge fails to subdue ignorance and make the heart beat only to serve Adhoksaj Vishnu, the all-pervasive Lord who is beyond sense perception, then it will simply befriend ignorance, and together they will just become engaged in enjoying worldly pleasures. Sometimes the forces of knowledge and ignorance battle each other, and together fall to the jaws of death. Conceited intellectuals. Those endowed with keen intellect can become scholarly and knowledgeable. They can become acquainted with the winding current that flows endlessly through the ages, carrying the various conceptions of... Let me reread that. They can become acquainted with the winding current that flows endlessly through the ages, carrying the various conceptions of the external world. These philosophers, using their intellect and genius, can astound the world by inventing ever-new channels of thought. Through their erudition, in treatises like the Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajurveda, and Atharva Veda, and through their mastery of a range of fields of knowledge, such as education, shiksha, prescribed rituals, kalpa, grammar, vyakaran, etymology, nirukta, poetry, chanda, astrology, jyotish, medicine, ayurveda, natural science, vigyan, archaeology, pratnatattva, sculpting, shilpa, fine arts, kala, music, sangeet, politics, rajniti, economics, arthaniti, and sociology, samajniti. Such thinkers have earned revere worldwide. In each and every one of these fields of knowledge, the eager apprentice idolizes some expert from his chosen field and becomes his student. Although upon observing the majesty of contemporary intellectuals, the eager apprentice may be instantaneously impressed and astonished, he nevertheless devotes his time to studying under the tutelage of the distinguished champion of his particular interests. Okay, even though he's, And the principal motive that drives all of his ostentatious admiration of his hero is the prospect of fulfilling his own personal ambitions, namely erudition and respectability. Like this, desperately struggling to remain afloat in the diverse seas of knowledge, so many intellectuals fail to cross the vast ocean of mundane existence, all because conceit, arrogance, and intolerance shackle their selfish, blinded eyes solely to this mundane realm. Andam tama pravishyanti ye vidam upasate tato bhuya ivate tamo yau vidyayam rata. Shri Ishupanishad 9. Those who embrace nescience enter into the darkest ignorance, but those who absorb themselves in so-called erudition fall into an even bleaker darkness. Whoa. Those who embrace nescience enter into the darkest ignorance, but those who absorb themselves in so-called erudition fall into an even bleaker darkness. Huh. The soul cannot rely on knowledge to gain true freedom. Illusion, or maya, has two modes: knowledge, vidya, and ignorance, avidya. The influence of knowledge erodes mundanity, while ignorance nourishes and furthers it. Those who become overwhelmed by worldliness remain in a state of ignorance, and the divine nature, the chit prakriti of their souls, becomes enveloped by the murk of mundanity. On the other hand, those who are detached from worldliness can demolish their mundane existence in all its confines. But without bhakti, even these detached persons cannot easily earn the shelter of the Lord's Swarup Shakti, his most intimate internal potency. Consequently, such persons inevitably destroy their own souls and plummet into the most ghastly darkness. No soul in this world, a world that is plagued by illusion, can ever truly free himself from mundane existence by relying on the influence of knowledge if he fails to establish his relationship with the Supreme Self, Paramatma. Therefore, the Vedas state, O living entity, the truth of the soul, the truth that you are seeking, is neither knowledge nor ignorance. Rather, it is something that stands apart from both. It is part of the soul's very constitution that he may fall under the sway of maya, illusion. since he is but an infinitesimal part of a consciousness, Anu Chaitanya. Manipulated by such illusion, the soul is gripped. The soul is gripped by sorrow. To find relief from his sorrow and sufferings, the soul seeks refuge in knowledge, and the monistic thoughts To find relief of his sorrow and sufferings, the soul seeks refuge in knowledge, and the monistic thoughts he subsequently entertains become the cause of the worst of his miseries. Yeniravindaksha vimuktamaninas tvayastapavad avishuddha buddhaya aruhya kritrena parampadang tata patantado nadrita yushmarangraya. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.32. O lotus-eyed Lord, some people proudly consider themselves to be liberated despite having no realization of you, the absolute truth. Their speculations spoil their intelligence, and no matter how much they fancy they have elevated their state of consciousness through the severe penance and austerity, they inevitably fall from their imaginary platform because they disregard the worship of your lotus feet. I'm just seeing if the sound is okay. Oh, cool. The murk of mundanity, yes. Okay. The awakening of feeling. To rescue us from this painful predicament, the Vedas say, Isha vasyam idam sarvam yakincha jagatyam jagat tena tyaktena bhunjita ma gridha kasyasvid dhanam. Shri Ishupanishad 1. The Supreme Lord is the controller and proprietor of all that is, of every animate and inanimate entity throughout creation. One should accept for himself what the Lord has given him as his share, and never try to take another's portion. In his commentary on this verse, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, by his own potency, Atma Shakti, the Supreme Lord created this universe, and by the strength of that same potency, he then entered within each and every atom, thus pervading everything. Likewise, you too, O soul, are a unique existential principle, Vishesh Tattva, and have emanated from one of his energies. He is Paramatma, the Supreme Soul, and you are Atma, a minute soul. From the perspective of your constitutional function, your Atma Dharma, none is as intimately kindred to you as he. But at present, on account of misconceptions about your identity, you have labeled all but yourself as other, and allowed yourself to exploit all other entities for your own selfish indulgences. Yet, if you could perceive the Supersoul's existence within all things, and thereby free yourself from selfishness, you would no longer be compelled to misappropriate all perceptible objects for your own indulgence, considering them to be something other. Offer all things in the service of the Lord. Whatever you may acquire, accept it as his grace. If conducted thus, all your deeds will be shaped by the constitutional nature of your pure soul. End of purport. Because Bhagavan Adhoksaj, the transcendent proprietor of all potencies, possesses natural authority over everything, he can reveal himself without discrimination, even to such an unworthy and miserable living entity as me, and he is never apathetic about bestowing his mercy. The jiva fails to conceive of such causeless infinite grace as found in so kind a Lord. The jiva fails to conceive of such causeless infinite grace as found in so kind a Lord. But when he realizes that the grandeur of erudition is but trivial, he experiences the wavering feelings within his heart. The wavering of feelings within his heart. The acute feeling within our heart, full of yearning to serve that most auspicious Lord, he who is the actual goal of all service, is what gradually leads us to the foreground of prem, of pure love. These very feelings, which become fortified by saintly company, are capable of giving us a hint of Vishuddha Sattva, because they rid us of our consciousness. our consciousness of distress arising from the three mundane modes, namely ignorance, passion, and worldly goodness. He watches over me. He listens when I speak. He worries for me, and when I forget him, he cannot forget me. He is the very origin of all sublime qualities. His sacred body is not mundane. Rather, he possesses a form wherein there lies no difference between soul and body. A divine form comprised entirely of cognizance, eternity, and joy. He is my master, and I am his infinitesimal, yet similarly transcendental servant and eternal associate. Discarding his company and service to him, at times I beckon ignorance in the form of karma kanda, the prescribed methods for attaining mundane prosperity. At other times, acquiring excessive knowledge leads me to seek the impersonal Brahma, which in turn leads me to the grimmest, most ghastly darkness. This kind of knowledge stems from the illusory potency. And we're reading this. The entire paragraph appeared in English in the original article. Okay. This is all in English in this Bengali article. The constitutive nature of the finitude and the transient. Finitude means the finite, the finiteness. Yes, the state of having limits or bounds. So the constitutive nature of the finitude and the transience of sensuous objects is such that when too much addicted to, they naturally create an aversion on the part of the ego. And the averseness, which is described in the Vedanta system as iha amutra phala bhoga viraga, disinterest in or detachment from enjoying the results of action, either in this life or the next, forms the doorway to right knowledge. And because such averseness follows from the very nature of the products of Maya, it is but fitting that Vidya, as a doorway to right knowledge, is an effect of the Maya Shakti. Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to understand this. Okay. Sorry. Okay. The sublime transient ideal of both knowledge and ignorance resides within the Lord's spiritual potency, the Chit Shakti. If a person endeavors to demolish the perverse forms of knowledge and ignorance, which are offered by the illusory potency, by setting that ideal as his objective, he comes to see through a special characteristic function of the Chit Shakti. By adhering to that special vision, he shall never again fall prey to destruction at the hands of mundane knowledge, which has impersonalism as its signature trait. I had a whole discussion with Vaijantimala last night about this, because Gyan means impersonal knowledge. But then I was thinking, what about science and the different kinds of philosophy? But I think that all also comes under the category of impersonal knowledge, because it doesn't have any connection with the Lord. Anything that isn't directly connected with the Lord and our relationship with Him is impersonal. It's not yeah. So knowledge stemming from the illusory potency will lead the soul from mundanity only to the points of impersonal immortality. When the ignorance that stems from the illusory potency points at its own sublime counterpart, it itself transforms into that ideal tattva, aspect of reality. It is only then that the soul's aprakrit swarup, the transcendental intrinsic form, Sri Parameshwar's aprakrit swarup, and the divine mutual relationship between them will shine forth in all brilliance and produce the supreme ras, supermundane liquid emotions, which stems from the spiritual potency. Finding nectar. Vedang chayas tad vedobhyam saha avedaya mritum tirtva vidyayamrita ashnute. Shri Ishupanishad 11. He who simultaneously comprehends both knowledge and ignorance will transcend dying. That person who simultaneously comprehends both knowledge and ignorance will transcend dying in ignorance and will enjoy the immortal nectar of knowledge. It is then only, at that auspicious moment, that one finds a trace of the nectar of divinity. Only then does his spiritualized heart experience intense feelings for Sri Hari's transcendental lotus feet. Sriman Mahaprabhu has also said, Prabhu kohe vidya mada vidya sar, Rai kohe Krishna bhakti vina vidya nahi ar. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 8:245. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inquired, what is the most essential knowledge amidst all forms of knowledge? To which Rai Ramananda replied, other than Krishna Bhakti, there is no knowledge. And Thakur Bhakti Vinod has sung, Jada Vidya Jata Mayara Vaibhava Tomara Bhajane Bhadha Moha Janamiya Anitya Sangsare Jiva Ke Goro Ye Gadha. Sharnagati Song 3. All mundane knowledge is but an extension of illusion. It is a hindrance to your bhajan and simply spawns delusional infatuation for this transient world, making the soul act like a donkey. Learned rogues. These load-carrying donkeys may earn tremendous praise from common people who fancy them to be learned thinkers. But their hearts do not quiver with feeling for Sri Hari. But if their hearts do not quiver with feeling for Sri Hari, they cannot bring welfare to the world. Rather, they only increase its unrest. It says, I carried books since years, but could not stop to be a donkey. Okay. One second, I need to clear my throat. If the scholar's knowledge turns their hearts to stone, then such scholars are better described as fiends, or swindlers than as they're better described as fiends or swindlers than as scholars. What's a fiend? A fiend is an evil spirit or demon, a very wicked or cruel person. The devil. Okay. The world's marketplace has no scarcity of such rogues. Because of their immense numbers, they are seen everywhere, especially in the vicinity of Malabar, a hub of impersonalism in Kerala, South India, and Varanasi. The fields, bathing cots, and courtrooms are all teeming with them. These selfish people become obsessed with the urge for sensual pleasure and thereby erect barriers across the path to their own true well-being. And due to envy of Sri Hari, who is all auspicious, they fall into a state of deplorable degradation. Mahimanto bhaktestu bhakta eva vijanate mahatem suti pidantu bandhananu bhavet kachit. As a barren woman can never know the intense pains of childbirth, the non-devotees can never fathom the glory of bhakti. That's a really interesting comparison. Only the devotees are acquainted with it. Okay. May the Supreme Lord Vasudeva, who hails from the sublimely pure mode of existential cognizance, Vishuddha Sattva Gunanvita Chit Prasuta, save us from being swallowed alive by the throes of illusion. By the throes. Throes is intense or violent pain and struggle, especially accompanying birth, death, or great change. Cool, I like that word. Selfish knowledge. One second, let me check. The comments sounds okay, this wind is okay. Oh, and Rup Manjari is saying Sambandha Gyan is like inoculation against Mayavadi perception that transforms fields of knowledge into an ornament of the Lord's variegatedness. Yes. Okay. If acquired knowledge, intelligence, wealth, admirers, and one's life and youth are engaged not for the highest purpose, para-artha, but rather to feed one's own petty, lowly, and self-indulgent purposes, then the cycle of mutual exploitation will swell until the havoc it wreaks destroys oneself along with the entire world. For this reason, such selfish people are never favored by Sri Vishnu, the guardian and sustainer of the world. On the other hand, when a person's acquired knowledge is engaged for the highest purpose, para-artha, he advances on the path of auspiciousness and earns the favor and grace of Sri Vishnu. Such saintly souls who are able to grasp life's essence, saragrahi, travel the path of auspiciousness, being religious and endowed with spiritual merit. Saintly men and demoniac men have opposite destinies, and they have waged war against each other since time without beginning. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya tadushkritam dharma sangstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Bhagavad Gita 4:8. To protect my unalloyed bhaktas, to annihilate the wicked, and to re-establish Dharma, I appear millennium after millennium. When the demoniac dynasties swell in numbers, Bhagavan Sri Vishnu personally incarnates. With his Sudarshan Chakra, his divine disc weapon which bestows divine vision, he cuts to shreds the poisonous influence of demoniac people, whose perception is corrupt, and he rescues the saintly people, whose perception is pure. In the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna's dear friend Bhima crushed and hacked off the heads of countless demoniac men with his deadly mace. There he established the futility of their corrupted genius. The moral he imparted was that one should discard vanity and cultivate being even more humble than the lowly straw and more tolerant than the enduring tree. Oh my God, sorry. Okay. That was really by hacking off the heads of countless demoniac men. He imparted the moral that we should discard any vanity and cultivate being even more humble than more humble than a lowly straw and more tolerant than an enduring tree. Okay, knowledge and feeling. If the brain's capacities are made to assist the heart, providing opportunities to further the heart's true inclination, the sadvritti, then by the effect of keeping saintly company, we can shed our arrogance and set foot on the path that leads to life's supreme goal. We can then become more humble than a blade of grass. See, Vaishnav humility isn't just like bowing down to every single person and saying, I'm so fallen, but it's becoming established in our relationship with Krishna. That's what humility is. That's the meaning of humility. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.2, we find the statement, Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivadam. Only a truly existing entity, which is related to the Absolute and thus supremely auspicious, is worthy of being known. If we seek out communion with the all-auspicious Absolute Truth, our hearts will melt, and we will be elevated to the forefront of sublimely pure existence, Vishuddha Sattva. Our serene hearts, thus established in pure cognizance, can then become the playground for Sri Adhoksaj's loving pastimes. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na sochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mar bhaktim labate param. Bhagavad Gita 18:54. A person thus situated in Brahma becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires anything. Being equally disposed to all beings, he attains bhakti to me, which is blessed with the symptoms of prem. In our serene hearts, feelings for Sri Adhoksaj will make their appearance. Thereafter, we will be delivered from this mundane world and by the mercy of Sri Guru, we will discover the spiritual pastimes of the Lord and become expert relishers of one of the transcendental humors, namely servanthood, friendship, parenthood, or amorous love. Only in a heart radiant with pure goodness can ras make its appearance. Vyatita bhavana vartmayash chamatkara bharabhu hridi sattva jvale bhadam swadate saraso mata. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Southern Division 5.132. In the stage of bhav, each of the ingredients of ecstatic emotion, like vibhav and vyabhichari bhav, are relished independently of one another. After transcending this stage, all the ingredients of ecstatic emotion combine. The ecstasy that arises from that combination causes a state of intense astonishment to arise in the heart, which has become resplendent with Shuddha Sattva, pure existential goodness. That most relishable ambrosia of transcendent liquid emotions is technically called ras. If someone completes his study of the Vedas, the various limbs of the Vedas, and the supplemental Vedic literatures, but divine ras does not awaken within his heart, then fie on his erudition. Shrutam apyo panishadam ture hari katam ritat yan shanti dravachita kampashru pulakadaya. Even though one may listen to the recitation of the Upanishads, if one's heart does not melt and the symptoms of trembling, tears, horripilation, and so forth do not subsequently appear, then that person is very far away from relishing the nectar of Hari Katha. Bhagavan alone is the one true reality we must come to know. Knowledge that does not bring feelings for Him into our hearts is self-destructive. Wow. Knowledge that does not bring feelings for Him into our hearts is self-destructive. May Shuddha Saraswati, Bhakti Devi herself, the goddess of pure transcendental knowledge, shelter us from the clutches of such harmful knowledge. May we become students in the school of absolute transcendental knowledge, and thus avoid the bewilderment of dry knowledge. Empty trance. The Shankar of Malabar, with his overinflated erudition, exercised his intellect in the process of negation, relying solely on knowledge derived through direct sense perception, aparoksha gyan. He regarded the Lord as an entity within the grasp of intellect, and became situated in trance on that conception. Yet, in that trance, no emotion, nor any love for Sri Adhokshaj arose in his heart. He was therefore unable to transcend the stage of presuming the absolute reality to be within the comprehension of material senses. And Bodhisattva, Sakyasingha Buddha, the enlightened one, so-called enlightened one, regarded the voidest trance. He regarded the voidest trance that he had once buried himself in, as he had sat beneath the Bodhi tree, and as the highest precepts there is. Sorry, I read that wrong, but I think you got the point, right? We do not wish to become We do not wish to become as unenlightened as the enlightened one, or as overinflated with erudition as Shankar of Malabar. Sri Bodhayan Muni, on the other hand, represents our ideal. And what's the footnote there? Sri Bodhayan Muni was a major proponent of the Vaishnava theistic interpretation of the Vedanta Sutra, and the author of Brahma Sukta Vritti, which predates Shankaracharya's Shariraka Bhashya. Never heard of him before. So Sri Bodhayan Muni, on the other hand, represents our ideal. By following his example, we will be saved from the clutches of the two kinds of trance just mentioned. In the land of Sri Purushottam, We will sit by the shore of the ocean in Bodhayan Kutir, which lies not far from the sacred samadhi of Srila Haridas Thakur. There, by serving Shri Shri Gaur Gadadhar, who are situated atop Chatak Parvat, we can discover the Unata Ujjvala Ras of Sri Gopinath. And Unata Ujjvala Ras means the highest, the Unat mode of pure loving service to Bhagavan, the blazingly effulgent Ujjvala, paramour love conceived of by the Vraj Gopis, Madhurya Ras, unwedded conjugal love of God. The pains of transcendent love. Yugait shunyaitam jagat sarvam govinda virahena me. Shri Shikshashtakam 7. O Saki, in separation from Govinda, even a moment seems like a millennium. Tears begin to shower from my eyes like rain from the clouds, and this entire world seems void. These words spoken by Sri Gaur condemn the two kinds of trance mentioned before, and impart to our hearts an emotion so mighty that we regard it as thousands of times superior to Brahma Sukha, that is, the felicity that arises from eliminating all mundane feelings and imagining oneself to be one with the unchangeable Brahma. Felicity is intense happiness. The ability to find appropriate expression for one's thoughts. I think it's intense happiness here, yeah. What joy is there in a heart where only the pretentious imitation of happiness can be found, and where feelings of loving service to Govinda never arise? The feelings that arise in the hearts of mundane lovers by the influence of Madan, the mundane god of love, in times of separation and in times of union, cannot be equated with the feelings of separation and meeting experienced in relation to Sri Madan Mohan, that transcendental god of love, who even enchants the heart of Madan, Cupid. And on the other side, we must distance ourselves from the Brahma Sukha, the happiness of monistic emancipation. Only when we follow the guidance of Sri Gaura's devotees, and thus learn to experience the feelings or the pains of separation from Sri Govinda within our hearts, will we achieve supreme joy. In the home of Srivas Thakur, known as Srivas Angan, there was a maid who served the devotees of Sri Gaur when they came there. Her name was Dukhi Devi, the sad one. But Sriman Mahaprabhu changed her name to Sukhi, which means the happy one. There's a C. Chaitanya Bhagavat Madhya Khanda 25, 11 to 22. I want to read Chaitanya Bhagavat so bad. Bearing the pains of separation from Sri Govinda that arise within our hearts, and calling out as we weep loudly and piteously, Hey Krishna, we will cross the ocean of mundane existence. O seekers of the impersonal Absolute, the painless joy of emancipation you are presently fantasizing about in your distressed state will soon become very painful for you. The forceful wind will make the serene ocean of your heart surge and overflow. Why? Know that Sri Madhva Muni, Sri Madhvacharya, the incarnation of the wind god, Vayu Devata, is known as the Guru of the whole world because he makes the most serene hearts into places of agonizing feelings of love for Sri Krishna. This is really interesting. Ananda Tirtha Nama Sukhamaya Dhama Jatir Jiyat Samsara Nava Taranim Yamiha Jana Kirtayanti Buddha, from the Prameya Ratnavali by Madhvacharya. Right? No, I don't know. No, it's not. All glories to the crest jewel of sannyasis, Sri Ananda Tirtha Madhva Muni, who is the abode of divine joy. The most learned personalities have praised him as the sturdiest of boats who can carry the conditioned soul across the ocean of material existence. Okay, so one of his disciples must have written that. Sublime joy. It is the work of illusion that one should fantasize about feeling joy by becoming bereft of all feeling. There are those who cannot comprehend the conception of loving separation, vipralamba, from the Lord. They assert the doctrine that perpetual union with him, sambhog, is superior. They thus make themselves incapable of performing anukul krishnanushilanam, constant, fervent endeavors born of genuine kindness towards him, which ultimately result in his greatest well-being. We note that, even in this world, the total absence of cold would render heat torturous. Similarly, without the presence of heat, there would be no pleasure in feeling cold. In the absence of one, the presence of the other shall never be appealing. Mundane natural scientists, that's a really cool example. Mundane natural scientists say, both coolness and warmth are delightful when they coexist, and neither of them is so when they exist apart, by itself. Consequently, both of them are painful in the absence of the other. Moreover, when hunger and food exist together, they are both delightful. But in the absence of food, hunger is painful, and vice versa. There's a footnote. This entire paragraph appears in English in the original Bengali article. Okay. However, in the land of divine love, prem, both union and separation yield sublime joy. In monistic emancipation, sayuja mukti, joy turns into distress due to the absence of feeling. Some therefore say that the aim of impersonal emancipation, which is to mitigate both the joy and distress, is only possible by cultivating divine love. Since in the realm of divine love, both the object of love, the Lord, and the resting place of love, his devotees, would realize profound happiness, even in laying down their own lives for each other. Such love leaves no scope for any mundane joy and distress. Mundane sentiments, which stem from adulterated consciousness, can never be equated with the feelings that arise from pure consciousness. The life and soul of the goddess of knowledge. Bharata bhumite hoila manusha janma jar, janma sartak kori koro para upakar. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 941. If someone has taken human birth in the sacred land of India, he must make his life successful by striving to actualize the greatest welfare for all. Achieving the greatest welfare, para upakar, obviously does not mean destroying one's soul along with everyone else's by pursuing temporarily pleasing goals of no true significance, just because of the goading of one's impetuous brain. Rather, it means to cleanse the mirror of one's own heart, and at the same time cleanse the mirrors of all others' hearts through the medium of Sri Krishna Sankirtan. It is only possible for Sri Krishna to appear in a heart that is Vishuddha, supremely pure. As a secondary result of Sri Krishna Sankirtan, the blazing fire of mundane existence is extinguished, and one attains one's ultimate good. Sri Krishna Kirtan is the life and soul, the jivan, of the goddess of knowledge, who is like his bride, Vidyavadu. And there's a footnote here. Okay, yeah. Wait, what? Shikshashtaka verse 8. Anyhow. A bride without life would have no feeling in her heart, no movement in her limbs, no cheer on her face, no enticing glance in her eyes, and no consciousness in her being. The expressionless, unblinking stare of a lifeless woman can actually spark her lover's feelings of detachment, for it is sure that she can never join him in amorous pastimes. Knowing that a lifeless material body will soon rot away, we find it urgent to give up our association with it, for it is no more than a corpse. This is a really dramatic example. So we will relinquish our pursuit of the cadaverous. I don't know this word, cadaverous. It means very pale, thin, or bony. Deathly pale. Okay, so we will relinquish our pursuit of the cadaverous bride of monistic knowledge, for she is completely empty of life-giving kirtan. She is voiceless, motionless, and totally unconscious. This is such a dramatic example, I love it. Instead, by the influence of Sri Krishna Kirtan, we will cross the ocean of material existence. We will perform that Krishna Kirtan under the exclusive guidance of his bride, the goddess of supreme transcendental knowledge, Pada Vidyavadu, for Shri Krishna Kirtan is her very life. Wow, this is awesome. Shri Krishna Kirtan causes the ocean of divine joy to surge and swell moment by moment. The petty happiness found in impersonal emancipation is like a glowworm in front of the sun. It is useless to compare it to the nectarian ocean of divine love for Shri Krishna. As a result of performing Shri Krishna Kirtan, one relishes complete nectar at each and every step, and one's proclivity to serve Shri Krishna swells more and more until it entirely engulfs and bathes the soul. May Shri Gurudev, he who performs Shri Krishna Kirtan, be glorified everywhere. May Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the embodiment of Shri Krishna Kirtan, be victorious everywhere. Shruyatam Shruyatam Nityam Giyatam Giyatam Muda Chintyatam Bhaktash Chaitanya Charitamritam. Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antilila 12:1. O devotees, just listen to it. Listen to it for all time. Sing it and chant it to your heart's delight. Forever meditate and contemplate Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita, the nectarian anthology of the life and teachings of Shri Chaitanya, the embodiment of the awakening of ecstatic consciousness through Shri Krishna Kirtan. Om Hari Om. Translated from the Weekly Gaudiya, Year 15, Issue 1, August 1936. I love this verse. Oh devotees, just listen to it. Listen to it for all time. Sing it and chant it to your heart's delight. Forever meditate and contemplate on Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita, the nectarian anthology of the life and teachings of Shri Chaitanya, the embodiment of the awakening of ecstatic consciousness through Shri Krishna Kirtan. Beautiful. Alright, I'm going to do a quick Mahamantra today because they're serving out prasad. Presumably, you're wondering who translated it? This whole article is Rays of the Harmonist team. Okay. Oh, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, sorry, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shishi Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai, Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmar Ashtatara Shatashmar Srila Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki Jai, Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmar Srila Bhakti Vedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmar Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmar Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmar Srila Bhakti Saraṅga Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Shatashmar Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosai Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitil Vishnu Vishnupad Ashtatara Srila Gorkishwaras Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai, Nitil Vishnu Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai, Nitil Vishnu Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai, Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jeev Gopal Badadas Raghunath Shara Gosai Prabhu Ki Jai, Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Kshetra Mandal Gaura Mandal Vrajamandal Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Sarva Abhishta Padatta Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai, Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kund Ki Jai, Shri Muna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai, Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai, Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shinitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavascha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat Pranams. Thanks for joining this reading with me. Yeah, this was it was some of it was, a lot of it was above me. I need to go over it again quickly just to be able to grasp it all. But yeah, thanks for joining me in this. I think tomorrow maybe I'll read something. I'm trying to go through all the different disciples of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And so that's why yesterday we did Bhakti Kamal Madhusudan Goswami Maharaj, today Bhakti Saraṅga Goswami Maharaj. Maybe I think tomorrow I'll do Srila Bhakti, read something from Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj. And yeah, maybe, and then after Srila Bhakti Kumar Shanta Goswami Maharaj, yes, let's go through different disciples so we get all of their Harikatha. All right, Haribol. And then after that, after I finish that, then we'll go to Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's grand disciples, like my Gurudev and Śrīla Vāman Gosvāmī Mahārāja, Śrīla Trivikram Gosvāmī Mahārāja, and Śrīla Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha Gosvāmī Mahārāja, Śrīla Bhakti Vigyan, like that. Alright, Haribol. Dandavat pranams, Haribol.